Bella Israel TV, Canal 26.7, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Once again, we are here. Very happy to welcome to this Shabbat of blessings. And we understand that today, because it is Shabbat, we have a Parashat, a Torah portion of today is called Parashat Wayigash. Wayigash means and he draw near. Now this parasha is very, very important because in this parasha it talks about a lot of things that perhaps a lot of us don't know, and a lot of hidden things in the scriptures in the Torah, especially in the Hebrew, that is encoded to these very latter days. And when I say these latter days, meaning the end of days, we have to understand that a lot of things are happening. We have to understand that we have to be armed with the Torah, with the scriptures. And then Mashiach said that in the latter days, a lot of false teachers are going to come and tell you a lot of things that are not actually in the Torah. So we always have to test things in the Torah as far as, being aware of the things that are going on, especially with the story of Joseph, how we can prepare ourselves for the latter days. And this is very so important, this Parashat. Now let's get into it. Parashat Wayigash, it's chapter 44, Genesis, or Bereshit 44:18 to 47:27. It goes on like this. En Yehudah Wayigash in Hebrew means he came near to him and said, "O my master, please let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you are like the Pharaoh." And remember this, that Joseph became just like the Pharaoh. It was just a little bit below the Pharaoh because the Pharaoh himself had bestowed absolute power to Joseph on all the land of Mizraim, Egypt. So this is very important. A lot of things are that we see here that we don't quite understand, but when we get into the Torah in the Hebrew and in a lot of sources, we fully get the whole picture of what happened on those days. Now let's go back. Something very important that he did, Yehudah, the brother, Judah. And he said in 44:33 of Bereshit or Genesis, "And now please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my master, and let the boy go up with his brothers." So what he's doing is basically pleading for his brother. And the reason why he's pleading is because he made a promise to his father, Yaakov, Israel, that he would not let the boy go anywhere and bring him back to his father. But remember this, that he made a promise to take care of the boy. This is very important because it takes part in the future that we will see very, very soon. So what you see here is something that, remember this, our words make impact for the future. Whatever our words come out, it will make an impact for our future. It will actually determine the future of our lives, whether we like it or not. It's all over the scriptures. Now, let's go back. Look at what it says here. Before we go on here, when he said, "Ani Yosef ha'od abi chai," is my father still alive? Very important, because here I just want to give a little reference on the Midrash in the Hebrew writings. It says that Joseph, he basically wanted to know if they were repentant or not on the things that they did. So he was testing them. He was trying them to see if they actually was a true teshubah, a true repentance, a true return of what they did, of what they've done. Now, in the Midrash, it says that Joseph asked the question to them, and he said, "So you're telling me that Benjamin's which is Joseph, Benjamin's brother, Joseph, was dead. He was dead. And they completely said, yes, he died. Are you sure? He said. Yes, he died. And he said very loudly, you are liars. You're lying to me. And they became very frightened because they said that, oh, this is it. We're dead. You told me that he's dead, but you sold him as a slave to the Egyptians, and I bought him. I bought him, and he is here. So from that moment on, they became frightened. They became frightened to the point where their eyes lit up, and Joseph said, Joseph, son of Yaakov, come out. And their eyes were completely wide open and terrified because they knew that he was coming out. And when nobody was coming out, then he said, when Joseph saw this scene, he asked, who are you looking for? And then he said in Hebrew, all these things that he said about questioning, their brothers, he spoke Hebrew there. He spoke Hebrew from that moment on. And he said, Ani Yosef ha'od Abichai. Is my father still alive? That was a question that they threw him completely because they didn't know. They were completely shocked from that moment on. And very important because from that moment on, they didn't believe it at all that it was him. Remember this, they needed a sign. In the Midrash, it says that in the Torah says that he has all the Egyptians, the servants and the Egyptians, to leave completely the room, just to leave him alone with his brothers. From that moment on, he spoke Hebrew, of course, and also he asked him where his father was, and still they didn't believe him that it was him. So as a proof, as a token that it was him, he was Joseph, he dropped his pants and he showed them the circumcision, a true sign that he was a true Hebrew. And they believed from that moment on. It is very important because remember this is a foreshadow of the things to come. And so that's what we come here to this point. Now, let's read something very important. But before that, let's read something important. 45 verse 1. And Joseph was unable to remain himself before all those who stood by him, and he called out, have everyone go out from me. So now one stood with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he went about the Mizraims in the house of Pharaoh, and heard it as well. And Joseph said to his brothers, Ani Joseph ha'od Abichai. He spoke Hebrew with them. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers were under the answer that it wasn't him, the one he was speaking with. They couldn't believe that it was actually him that was actually implying that very moment. So it is something that we have to consider as far as the Torah, but this is something that is very important. I want you to see something that we might not know. You probably heard it before, but when it comes to the scriptures, when it comes to these things, look at what it says in Ecclesiastes. That which has been, it is that shall be, and that which has been done, it is that which will be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. In other words, what Solomon is trying to say there in that scriptures, in that reference, in that verse, is that there's nothing new in under the sun and this earth. The things that were done before, it should be done again. In other words, their past repeats itself. And that's why I want you to see something very important. Look at what it says here. And we're going to see another foreshadow of the things to come. Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 6. And one shall say to him, what are those wounds in your hands? And he shall said, because I was wounded in the house of my beloved one. Who is the beloved one? Yisrael. Yisrael. Let's look another one. Zechariah 12:10. And it says here, and he shall pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of favor or supplication and prayer. And they shall look upon me. Look at what it says in Hebrew. In the conventional scriptures, it would not say these words at all. So you have to look at it. You have to look at it in the Hebrew. So that's what it says here. And they shall look upon me on blue, and they shall look upon me, Aleph Tau. Who is Aleph Tau? Yahushua, the Mashiach, because they have mocked me. This is in the Septuagint. This is in the Septuagint. What happened to the Mashiach? They mocked him. They thought they wasn't the Mashiach. And they shall mourn for him as the one mourned for the only son. And they shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness of the firstborn. Now, it's something that we have to consider here. The things that happened before, it should happen again. The same thing, the Yahusef is a foreshadow of the Mashiach. That's why our brothers, Yehudah, the Jews, our Jewish brothers, they understand that the Mashiach had two concepts. Well, they believe that there are two Mashiachs. But we know that there is only one Mashiach with two roles, which is the Mashiach ben Yosef, the suffering servant, and Mashiach ben David, which is the king. We know that there's two roles. The two scenes are one and the same. Now, we see the Mashiach is coming back, and he will literally show his hands, and they will see that he was the Mashiach, the one that they actually mocked him about 2,000 years ago. This is very important, because the same thing happened to Yosef. The same thing is going to happen to Mashiach when he will show this. He is proof that it is the Mashiach. Now, Book of James or Yaakov 4:8, draw near to the Almighty, and He should draw near to you. Cleanse hands, sinners, and cleanse the hearts, you double-minded. It is very important for us to understand that while we are returning, we have to understand that we're just not returning. We need to return. We need to draw near to the Almighty so He should draw near to us. It's very important because we might not think that it's not possible, but the Creator, the simple fact that the Mashiach came to earth and people touched the tzitzit to be healed, they knew there was a power to Him. Today is the same thing. We need to draw near to the Mashiach to understand that through the Mashiach we can be. He's a portal. He's a bridge to Abba Kadosh, Yahweh Sevaot. We have to understand that. Just the same as Yehudah did to Yosef, he drew near. We have to do the same thing too as well. Now let's go with the next in Bereshit, or Genesis 46:26. And all the souls that came to Yaakov in Egypt, who came out of the loins, or for him, besides the wives of the sons of Yaakov, even all the souls were 66. This is very important because in the scriptures we might not realize that that we have to see a lot of concepts, a lot of things, and these things are very important for us to understand that while we search for the truth, we have to search a lot of sources, and these sources are very important because we just not we haven't gotten to the main important thing on this parashat. Yosef is the one who came to deliver the whole nation of Mizraim, and also his father and his brothers, and the whole entire earth, basically. But we have to understand this, that while he was doing it, he was doing it in the concept of the future as well. And this is something that we have to understand, that while we are doing it, we have to understand that the Mashiach, so he will do too in the future. Now, in number 66, we have to understand that these souls were men. But when Joseph came to be, he's added on, and let's look at it in the version, the Septuagint. The Septuagint version says like this. But before that, let me give you this Bereshit 46:12, and the reason why I bring this verse is we have to understand that the sons, and let's read it on, and the sons of Yehudah, and Onan, were, and let's in red it says, and Onan died in the land of Canaan, or Canaan, or Canaan. And the reason why I bring this is because, remember this, they're not included in the counting, in the reckoning of numbers of souls that came. And the reason why they're not added on is because they sinned, both of them. One was very evil, one actually was really, really evil, the son of Yehudah, and the other one did not want to bear any children. So there are two things that they did. One was a thief of something else, and the other one did not want to bear any children. So it was completely the Creator saw it as an evil act, and both die. So they're not included on the 66 of Yaakov. And that's what I bring it on. Now let's look at what it says here. It's something very important. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance, and his sons, but the wealth of the sinner is laid upon the tzaddik. It applies to what we see here in Onan and very important, not just for them, and also for what is about to happen now. Now let's look at this, very important. The Septuagint version 46:26 says, and the sons of Joseph were born to him in the land of Egypt. Look at what it says here in the Septuagint. 9 souls. And all the souls of the house of Jacob who came with Joseph into Egypt were 75. 66 plus 9 are the total of 75 souls. So in other words, Joseph wasn't, the two sons of Joseph, which is Manasseh and Ephraim, were not the only ones. And we can see records that he had more children, and we will see another version too. In First Chronicles, I believe, they are accounted the names of Joseph. I just need to look it up and give it to you, the reference. But let me give you another reference here in the Torah. Look at what it says here. And Yaakov said to Joseph, when he given the blessing, he says, I'm going to adopt both of your sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. But look at what it says, and your offspring, which your father after them. In other words, you will have more children, they will be yours. But those two, they will belong to me. I'm going to adopt them. Very important, because we see the future here that is evolving into the future that we are into it. We are in it. Whether we like it or not, we are in it. And those who are called upon these things, we have to understand that the Creator have this plan out since the beginning of creation. Now let's go back and look at what it says here, just as a reference. Shemot, or Exodus 1:5. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Yaakov were 75 souls. 75 souls is a testing again. There were 75 souls. Some say were 70, but in reality, in the Septuagint, which is very, very close to the actual original Hebrew, are 75 souls. And even the Brit Hadashah says 75 souls as well. Now, let's 47:7. And Joseph brought in his father's Yaakov, and they placed him before the Pharaoh, and Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. Do you see that? Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. Before we go on, I want to mention something. We have to understand that this is where applies where love your neighbor as you love yourself. If they bless you, you need to bless them back. It is a rule of thumb of every Hebrew. The Hebrew mind is that if you bless me, I'm going to bless you as well. And the Mashiach gave a great example of this. Remember the Good Samaritan? If you read the whole parable, the Good Samaritan, he asked the question at the very end, who was the neighbor here? Who was the neighbor here? Who was the neighbor? It wasn't the priest, the Levite. It wasn't the Pharisees. It was a Samaritan, because he gave him, he gave him what he didn't have. He gave it to him. Whatever he necessary for him to get healed, he gave it to him. And Mashiach said, so you do the same thing. You need to repay the same thing. They do that to you, you need to repay them the same thing too. So there's a great example of Yaakov here. It is a rule of thumb. Every Hebrew, they bless you, you bless them. Because they bless Joseph, and Yaakov saw this, that Joseph was blessed. He blessed the Pharaoh back. Look at what it says here as a reference. Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. Do we see the pattern here? And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who despise you, or they curse you as well. You see the pattern here? Very important. Now 22 verse 17. And your seed shall pass the gates of your enemies. That's another thing that was fulfilled. And the seed of your enemies, and the seed possess the gate of your enemies. Look what it says here, going back to the Torah portion, 45:10, and you shall live in the land of Goshen. You see the pattern here? Do you see that the foreshadow of the things that happen, it was going to be fulfilled in the future. Same thing. Very important here. Now, 43 verse 8. And Yehudah said to Israel, his father, send the boy with me, he said. Remember this? We're just going back. Send the boy with me, and myself I should stand guarantee for him, for my hand you are to require of him. Now, before we go on, the things that he said, it actually happened in the future. Once again, the things that we said with our tongue, with our mouth, it will literally seals our future. And this is exactly what happened to Yehudah and Benjamin. I want you to see something very important here. But before that, I want you to see this. Going back to the reference, 44:33 of Bereshit or Genesis. And now, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my master, and let the boy go up with his brothers. We see here that he's basically saying what he said to his father. He's actually bounded by his word, that no matter that his brother needed to return him back to his father, he was going to remain as long as he gave his father the word that he will be as a guardian to his brother. It will be fulfilled. Now we come to the Haftarah. The Haftarah is basically the reference of parallel to the Parashat, the Torah portion that is in the book of Ezekiel or Yezekiah 37:15-28. Now remember this, he came near. That's the Torah portion. Now let's look at something very important. But before we get into the Haftarah, the parallel of the Torah portion, we have to understand a background of the house of Israel and the house of Judah. We have to understand this, because if we don't understand this, we won't be able to understand when we talk about the house of Judah and Ephraim, or the house of Israel. We have to understand the background of that. Now, in the first of Kings 12:20, and it came to be when all Israel heard that Jeroboam had come back, they sent them from him and called him into the congregation and set him as a reign over all Israel. And there was none who followed the house of David except the tribe of Yehudah. Now, very important here, because we have to understand the background. In the kingdom of Solomon, because I didn't want to bring a lot of verses, but if you do research on the scriptures, you understand that Solomon had over 1,000 concubines, and most of them, if we're not saying all of them, drove him to idolatry. He set up altars, and he set up an Asherat and Moloch. He did a lot of bad things almost at the end of his life, and the judgment came to him on his deathbed. And the prophet said to him, because you have disobeyed my Torah, and not as my servant David, your father, followed with all his heart, you did not do so. So your kingdom, the reign of Israel, the nation of Israel, will be torn half because you have disobeyed my word, my Torah. Exactly what happened here. We see that the kingdom of Israel was torn into pieces. It was split into half. Remember, now they come to think of, remember the brit, the covenant that Abraham did on Bereshit chapter 15, or Genesis chapter 15, that the animals had to be cut in half. The same thing happened with the house, with the whole nation of Israel was cut in half. And Jeremiah says, because you had disobeyed my covenant, I will cut you in half. The same thing. The same thing. Now, let's go back over here and look at what it says here. In the house of Israel went to exile, in the exile, in the Syrians in 740, 7408 AD. And it ended with Samaria on 721 AD. I'm sorry, BC, I'm sorry. I'm talking in the Hebrew here. In BC, I'm sorry. BC, both of them. And that was when the house of Israel completely lost their identity. Now, let's look at what it says in 1 Kings 11:29. It came to be that the time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahiah, the Shilomite, or from Shiloh, met him in the way, and he was wearing a new garment. And the two were alone in the field, and Ahiah, the prophet, took off a new garment that was with him, and he tore it into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, take for yourself these 10 pieces, in other words, these 10 tribes, for thus said Yahweh, the Almighty of Israel, see, I am tearing the reign out of the hand of Shalomo, and shall give you 10 tribes to you. But he shall have one tribe for the sake of my servants David, or David, for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. In other words, what came to be as known today as the northern kingdom, as the house of Israel, or Ephraim, or the 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom, which is Judah and Benjamin. Remember what Benjamin said, I will be a guardian of Benjamin? Both tribes came to be together, and is known as the house of Judah, or the house of, or the Jews, in other words, or the Jews. Now, they were in exile in 721 BC, in the chastisement time, 320. The chastisement time came to be the duration of the time was 390 years there. Now, they should return there, but they should have been returned 331 BC. What happened? How come did they not return? Something happened there that yield to something that is very staggering, that is yielding today. Something happened. Yahweh, chapter 2nd of Kings 17:13, Yahweh, give me just a second. Let me give you another verse. Leviticus 26:18. Leviticus 26:18 says, "And after all, if you do not obey my Torah or me, and then I shall punish you." How much did he says? "I will punish you 7 times more for your sin." 7 times more for your sin. So what it came to be here is then we need to multiply 390 years times 70. 390 years, that the duration of the time that they were in exile, and should have returned in 721, nothing happened. It's because they forgot the Torah. They said, "Who are you?" They completely ignored when Yahweh said, "You need to come back to me. You need to come back to me." They didn't. So we need to multiply. The Torah says that if you did not listen to my voice, I will punish you 7 times more for your sin. So 390 years times 7 is 2,730 years. What happened here? The Torah says also clearly, and also the prophets, that they were into exile completely, and they were lost into the nations, 70 nations all around the world. Very important indeed, because here it yields something super important. It yields that the house of Israel are the 10 lost tribes, and that's why we came in. Now, I want you to see something staggering. Matthew 15:24, and the Mashiach said something very important. And he answered and said, "I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Why did he say that? Remember, in the first century, who was at home? Who would stay at home? It was the house of Judah, the Jews. And there was a reason for it. It's because the Mashiach had to come from that lineage of the tribe of Judah. That's why in Revelation says Yeshua is the king, he is the lion of the tribe of Judah. He comes from the lineage of the tribe of Judah. And that's what the Mashiach said, "I did not come except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Where was the lost sheep? Around the world. Lost into the nations. Now, Hosea chapter 1, 8, 10. Then he said, "Call him Lo-Ami." Lo-Ami means not my people, for you are not my people. Look what it says, the prophet. "And it would not be for you. And the number of the sons of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which is not measure, not number. And it should be that the place where it said to them, you are not my people, it should be said to them, sons of the living Creator." Now, before we go on, remember this, in the same spot where the prophet said, "You Lo-Ami," which you're not my people, and the same spot, the prophet is actually saying that that will be called, it will be fulfilled again, "You are my people." And that's why it was a prophecy that needed to be fulfilled into a certain point of time. And that's what we see here in Romans 9:25 down below. And he said in Hosea, he's even a reference, Shaul, "I will call those who are not my people, and those who are beloved one, beloved." This is reference to chapter 2:22 of Hosea. By the same time, Hosea 1 also is saying, "Not my people, Lo-Ami." Now look at what it says in Ezekiel 34:11. "For that said the Master Yahweh, see, I myself shall search for my sheep and seek them out. Yahweh said that he will seek them out. I will seek for my sheep. And exactly what Mashiach came to do. Ezekiel 34:23, and I shall raise up over them a shepherd. Who's that shepherd? The Mashiach, Yahushua, my servant David. Why David? Because remember, the Mashiach comes from that lineage of David. 34:30, and they shall know that I, Yahweh the Almighty, am with them, and that I am with they, and the house of Israel are my people, declares Yahweh Sebaot. Now, once again, we see reference after reference. There is so many reference that talks about this topic, this issue, that is a number all the scriptures in the Torah and also in the prophets and the whole Tanakh talks about this topic. Now, we have to understand about the Torah portion talks about this. And let's read on. Ezekiel 37:16, saying to you, Yahweh saying to you, son of man, take one stick to yourself and write on it for Yehudah and for the companions and the sons of Israel. In other words, the house of Judah and the house of Israel. And take another stick and write on it for Yahoseph, the stick of Ephraim. Do you see that? Those two. And the house of Israel, his companions. And draw them one and one for yourself. And one echad, and one together. Echad means unity. And they shall become one. Do you see that? One echad in your hand. That's why he goes on, it says, and the sons of your people should speak to you, saying, you will not declare to us what this means to you. They say, so they say, the Almighty Yahweh, behold, I will take the stick of Yahoseph, which is in the land of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will put them with him, and with the stick of Yehudah, and I will make them one stick, and it shall be echad, one, in my hand, and the sticks shall be in the hand for one another. Now, remember this is a prophecy that had to be fulfilled. This is a prophecy that the Mashiach in the first century came to fulfill, because remember, the prophecy of the return of the return of the exile from the house of Israel, it had to be a prophecy that it needed to be fulfilled. When was it fulfilled? That's the important thing. Now, so let's look it up. It says here in Daniel 7:13, I was looking in the night, the vision, behold, one and the Son of Man came in the clouds of heaven. Why? Remember this that it says earlier. It says Ezekiel says, and Son of Man. Same pattern here. Son of Man is referring to Yahushua the Mashiach. We see another one. Let's look at another one here. And this, for the Son of Man, the Son of Adam, or the Son of Man, has come to seek and to save that was lost. Another reference of the Mashiach, saying as the Son of Man. You see another reference? Jeremiah 3:6. And the Almighty Yahweh said to me in the days of Yoshiyahu and the king, have you seen what the backsliding Israel have done? She has gone up in the high mountain under the every green tree, and they were committed whoring, it says. And after them, it says, and after she has done, I said to return to me, but she did not return. She did not. He actually pleaded for her, for the house of Israel, come back. I will restore you again. I will restore your kingdom again. But they did not. They completely backslide to the Creator about these things. Now, Jeremiah 31:32, not like the covenant I made with the fathers in the day when I took them by the hand and bring them out of the land of Mizraim, Egypt, my covenant which they were broke, though I was like Baal. Do you see that? In the Hebrew says Baal, to them declares Yahweh. Do you see something very important here? That the Creator said that He will make a covenant to them, but to them, Yahweh was more like Baal. Look it up, please. Don't always give this reference, but I need you to look it up in the Hebrew, and it's not going to say the other word of Ishi. Ishi means husband. Baal means man, means my Lord. That's what he means. Now, let's go back, and I will give you another verse. Yeshayahu 45:19. I have not spoken in secret in dark places on the earth. I have not said to the seed of Yaakov, seek me in vain. I am Yahweh, speaking righteousness, declaring matter that are straight. Gather yourself and come. Draw near together. Do you see that? Draw near together. You have escaped from the goyins, from the nations. No knowledge have they have no knowledge have they who are lifted up in the wood and the carving image, and prayed. You see that? And prayed to the mighty ones that have not saved. In other words, these our forefathers, whether we like it or not, come from idolatrous background. All of us have come from the idolatrous background, one way or other way. But the important thing is that it is prophesied for us to fulfill that promise, that prophecy, that we need to return, and that voice that the Mashiach is calling. We need to, as a sheep, we need to hear that voice. We need to obey that. Now, I want you to see this, very important. Yeshayahu, or Isaiah 45:21, declare and bring near. Do you see that? Declare and bring near, and let them even take counsel together, who has announced this from old, who has declared from that time, it is not I, Yahweh, and there is no mighty ones besides me. There is no Elohim, there is no demons. A righteous one and Savior, there are none but besides me. There are none but besides me. Turn to me, says Yahweh. Turn to me and be saved in all your ends of the earth, for I am Yahweh, and there is none besides. There is none else. Now, the Creator is actually calling us upon to return again to Him. And the only way we can do that is to acknowledge the things that He had given us, to acknowledge the Mashiach, the true Mashiach, not the Jesus, but the Mashiach, the Yahushua, the true Hebrew, not the Greek one, the one that's portrayed every Sunday as a Greek Messiah, but rather the one written in the scriptures and the Torah. Now, the book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 6, so when they have come together, they ask him, saying, Master, will you at this end restore the reign or the kingdom of Israel? And he said to them, it is not for you to know the times of the season which the Father Yahweh has put on His own authority. First of all, let's break it down. Where were they standing? They were standing in Yehudah, in Judah, in the land of Judah, which is their lower kingdom, the southern kingdom. They asked this very important question before the Mashiach ascended to the right Father of Yahweh Sabaoth, the Father. But they asked him the question, and the question, once again, let's read it on. He says, Master, will you at this time restore the king of Israel? Why would they ask this question? It's because it wasn't the time yet. It wasn't the time of the northern kingdom to be restored. That's what the Mashiach said. It is not for you to know the times and the seasons. It's not time yet. It's still more time. It's too short. Let's go on to another verse. In 1948, in the year 1948, the nation of Israel became as a nation again in 1948. I'm sorry, the camera is there, but in 1948, the kingdom of Israel became once again as a nation. And here, I just want to move it a little bit here. Here, it became 1948. It became as a nation, May 14, 1948. The state, not the people. The people, of course, but I'm talking about the land. Remember, land in the scriptures are very important. The land of Israel became known as a nation in 1948. And this is something very important because this one has a lot to do with Jubilee. The Jubilee are the Jubel in Hebrew. Every 50 years, something has to happen. Something has to happen. In the year, let's read it on what Mashiach said. And the Shem Tov, the Hebrew Matthew 24:34 says, "Truly I say to you that this generation should not by no means pass until all this would take place." If you read it on, the Mashiach said a lot of things that we can quite understand. He said about this generation, but also remember that it also speaks about the fig tree, that when the leaves are blossom, remember that the end is near. In 1948, it became as a nation. That was when we became to blossom again. In 1948, I'm talking about the land. But it was a jubel. It was a jubilee on that particular time. And remember this: everything has its time. In 1948, in the Torah calendar, became 5900. In the year 5900, remember that the length of time is 6,000 years. So in 1948, in the Torah calendar, it became in 5900. Okay, so it's still 100 years more. Now remember what generation mean? How many years is one generation? We will look at it. We will look at it. But I want you to see that the Mashiach said that this generation should not pass until all these things take place. Once again, let's look at what 100 years means. In one generation means 100 years. In Bereshit Genesis 15:3, Yahweh Sebaot said to Abraham that his generation, his genes, his descendants will be in a strange land for 400 years. Verse 16 says in the fourth generation, look it up in the Hebrew, it says the fourth generation. So that tells you and me that every generation is 100 years. Every generation is 100 years. Now, by saying that, we have to take into account that when he said these things, then let's look at this. Shaul is giving a reference of the prophet. Book of Acts 15:16. After this, I shall return and rebuild the sukkah, or the booth, or the tent of David, which has fallen down, and shall rebuild its ruins, and I shall set it up, so that remnant of the mankind shall seek Yahweh, even in all the goyim, the nations, on whom my name has been called, say Yahweh, who is doing all this, and who has made known from old. In other words, Shaul is giving a reference of the things that the prophet prophesied about, the things about the restoration of the house of Israel, and also the restoration of our Jewish brothers too as well. So, but mainly about the northern kingdom, because the northern kingdom had no Torah, had no creator. As Ephesians, book of Ephesians says, that we have no Mashiach, we have no covenant, we have no father, and therefore it is important for the creator to bring us back. Rather than our Jewish brothers, they do have the Torah there. So it's a great advantage. Remember the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son. Remember that parable? It talks about the two houses. the younger brother and the older brother. Who's the older brother on the parable? The stay at home. Remember, he stay at home with his father. It is Judah. It is our Jewish brothers. Who is the younger brother? Remember, it is the house of Israel. The house of Israel is the younger brother that he asked for all his um, his part. He wanted his money. He went and wasted all in the world. Remember that, and finally he said, "You know what? I need to return where I needed to be, my father." And the same thing happened to all of us. We need to return to the Father. But one thing happened in that parable, that the older brother became jealous. Same thing is happening today. Our Jewish brothers becoming a little bit jealous because we are returning back to our Hebrew roots, to the Torah. But exactly what Mashiach foresaw, and also the prophets as well. Now, let's recap here. The year 1948 became the year 5900 in the Luach HaTorah, LHT. The Luach HaTorah is basically the Torah calendar. In 1948 became as a Jubilee, a Jubel. Now, remember that every generation is 100 years. So in 1948, remember that every 50 years is one Yubel. So remember that the year, the 2,790 years had to be fulfilled. So it had this date. So remember that every Jubilee has to be an event. It has, whether we like it or not, it has to be an event. And we can see, that's what if you go into the book of Jubilees, please read the book of Jubilees, and you're going to see that every event that happened in the book of Jubilees, it was a Jubel. That's why it's called the book of Jubilees, because in every event, every 50 years happened an event. So in the futures as well. Now, in 1948, add 50 years more, and it becomes in 1998. What happened in 1998? The year of the house of Israel to return again, exactly what the book of Ezekiel, the dry bones, it started to gather their ligaments, to their flesh, to their soul, to ruach. They started to regain it back again, to return back again to the Torah. Not that it was fulfilled, but to begin to fulfill, because a lot of us, a lot of Ephraimitas, a lot of house of Israel start to return again until now. It's still coming. So in 1998, there was the beginning of the fulfillment of the house of Israel. So it gives us another 50 years, 1998, at another 50 years, it becomes to 2048, when the year 6000 would end, and the next millennium, which is Mashiach, comes. Now, we're not setting any dates here. I want to make it clear. We're not setting any dates. We're just telling you what the Torah calendar points at it. But I want to tell you this. The Mashiach said these things. If those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the sake of those chosen ones, those days should be shortened. In other words, what the Mashiach is telling us is that it can point at the year 2048, but that doesn't mean that it could lead up to 2048. It could be shortened. And it all has a lot to do with us. We can bring the Mashiach back before that happens. It has a lot to do with us, all of us. We need to bring the Mashiach back before that. That's what the Mashiach says very clear. For the sake of the chosen ones, the Sadiq, the justice, the righteous ones, those days should be shortened. We are closing now, and I want to make it clear that this is very important to understand that the Torah it brings a lot of hidden things, a lot of knowledge, But one thing is for sure that we have to ask Abba Kadosh, Yahweh Sabaoth, to give us knowledge, to open our eyes, to understand that we are living in the latter days. Remember what happened in the story of Joseph, in that event. Same thing could happen again. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to store food. We need to store water. We need to be prepared. A wise man prepare himself for evil. And if we don't prepare ourselves, and not just as far as material, literally way, but also in the spiritual way, in the Ruach, we need to prepare with Torah. We need to prepare with our prayers, with our tefillahs for the morning, for the early morning, for the afternoon and the evening. We need to, the same thing as our forefathers did. Yaakov, Abraham, Yitzhak, they did the same thing. So we need to prepare ourselves with all these things so that Father can be favor our Father in heaven, and that can give us great blessings as well. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you again next Shabbat. I will be making more recordings, more parashats, more Torah portions. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Any concerns and any tips, we are always welcome here. Shabbat Shalom. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah.
Bet Israel TV, canal 26.7, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos. Bet Israel TV, canal 26.3, Los Ángeles, California, uniendo pueblos. Adat Israel presents